If you've been looking for a church or a ministry to get involved with, we have a very special program for you today. Hello and welcome to Ministry Connections. I am Patrick Hoban, the local ministry director here at Salem and AM 980 The Mission. Each week on Ministry Connections, we spotlight a church or a ministry in the Twin Cities to help you to get to know them a little bit better. If you know of a church or ministry that you would like us to feature, call the station or drop us an email at comments@salemtc.com, and then you can also follow us on our Facebook page or X. Just look for AM 980 The Mission and you can find us there. Now today I have a very special guest and I'm very excited to introduce her to you. Her name is Cathy Blaeser, Co-Executive Director of Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life. Now, Cathy, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, your background, that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm not actually a native Minnesotan. I grew up in the D.C. area out in Maryland. And so I actually started my career with National Right to Life, lobbying in D.C. and Congress. So I grew up in a beautiful area of Maryland called Olney, just outside of D.C. And we moved here to Minnesota when I took a position with MCCL back in 95.
95, so you grew up mostly on the, I suppose that would be the East Coast, and then you came to Minnesota. How are you liking it so far over these last number of years in the cold Minnesota?
Yeah, it was quite the culture shock. And they say that you stay in Minnesota because of the people, not necessarily because of the weather. So I'm grateful for the people here because they do make it very enjoyable. We put down roots here. It's a great place to live.
And I feel likewise. Of course, I'm not a native of Minnesota either. I'm a native of Ireland and lived most of my time in the United States near Chicago, but I also love it. Now, tell me a little bit more about your organization. Tell us where it came from, what happened, what's the purpose of it?
Sure. So Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life, known as MCCL, has been around since 1968. So a full 5 years before Roe v. Wade was decided, people in Minnesota saw what was coming and they began to organize and to create this organization, MCCL. And so we are the largest and the oldest pro-life organization in the state and one of the most effective. Many people know us for our legislative and political work. It's what we're in the papers for and the news for. But actually the vast majority of what we do as an organization is educational. So we have educational events throughout the year. We actually just finished up our high school youth camp. We have 2 high school youth camps every summer. We had just amazing groups of high schoolers there learning more about the pro-life issue, how to have conversations with people who don't necessarily agree or don't know that they agree, and how to have those calm and compassionate and civil conversations that actually lead people closer to the pro-life position.
It's interesting. So, you're reaching a lot of these teenagers, which is absolutely crucial to shape their minds in what's right and what's wrong. Tell me, how open are these teenagers to your message?
They are so open. I often talk about teens and young adults today have grown up with ultrasounds. Ultrasounds have been a part of their life. They've seen their siblings' ultrasounds, their cousins' ultrasounds, their friends' ultrasounds. They grow up knowing that's a baby. And so they're the most pro-life generation we've ever seen. They're very open to the message. They're also open to the concept of justice. And so they know it's a baby. They recognize it as a human baby. And they want to see that baby receive the same justice that you and I receive, right? We have the same equal right to be protected from violence. And the unborn have that same right. And so they're very, very pro-life.
Well, what phenomenal. What an angle to look at that as a standpoint of justice. You are listening to Ministry Connections on AM 980 The Mission, where we give you a better look at a local ministry or church. And my guest today is Cathy Blaeser, and she is with Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life. What a phenomenal program, outreach, non-for-profit, whatever you want to say it, looking after probably the most vulnerable people that we have today. Could you tell me, Cathy, the mindset that's out there today, people are pushing this idea that babies are kind of expendable, right? So how is that working? Are you getting some pushback from, say, governmental organizations, or what's going on there? Give us a picture.
Well, Governor Walz and the DFL leadership at the legislature have definitely been on the full attack against the pro-life movement and against women and unborn children. They have completely shut down any other option than abortion. We had a great grant program, the Positive Alternatives Grant Program, that provided funds to organizations that provided alternatives to abortion. So if a woman wanted to choose life for her child, she could go to pregnancy resource centers and receive material support, educational support, social supports, friendship groups, and things like that. And there was this very small funding stream through the Positive Alternatives Grant Program that has been around since 2016. And Governor Walz and the pro-abortion leadership at the legislature not only defunded the program mid-cycle, so took money away that had already been promised to these organizations, but they actually got rid of the program. And so the only thing that Governor Walz's administration is funding is abortion. They're not funding any options to abortion. So at the same time that they pulled this small stream of funding for pregnancy resource centers, they increased in 2023 the funding for abortions by 20%, and in 2024 increased it another 20%. So the Walz administration and the pro-abortion leadership at the legislature want women to have one option and one option only. They are not pro-choice. They are pro-abortion. They want to fund abortions. They want women to seek abortions, and they don't want them to know that there are other options out there for them.
And so it's very important as we're coming up to this election season, as you could say, for people to really understand what's at stake. And I think a lot of us, it's kind of this unseen world that's out there, okay? We see the abortion clinics, but in the back of our head, it's not there. So how important is this right now, Cathy? How important is this for the average American person, the average person in Minnesota, to really understand what's happening?
It is critical for anyone who really wants to help women. When a woman walks into any sort of situation, she finds out she's pregnant, and she says, I don't know how I'm going to have this baby. I don't know what I'm going to do. She's not asking for a dead baby. She's asking for help. She's asking for someone to walk alongside of her. She's asking for help for the obstacles that she sees. Planned Parenthood and the other abortion facilities in this area, in this state, do not provide that kind of help. They take her baby, leave her with an incredible wound, and send her out into the same problems that she came in with. She still has need for material assistance. She still has need for educational assistance, for support, for help getting out of an abusive relationship. Those problems are still there, and now she has an additional problem where she has had an abortion that she will wake up and remember every day. And so there's not a mission of healing for these women that's coming out of our government. And so it's important for people, especially people in our churches, to reach out to these women and to recognize that with the numbers of abortions that we've had in the United States and the numbers of abortions that we've had here in Minnesota alone, every woman that you are looking at has an abortion story of some sort. She's either had an abortion, seriously considered having an abortion, helped someone have an abortion, either knowingly or unknowingly, or knows someone who's had an abortion that she cares about. And so we are all impacted by this, and we need to learn how to reach out to each other supportively, compassionately, but with real solutions that actually help women. Don't leave her in the same situation with an even deeper wound than she walked in with.
Wow, amazing. You know, I'm sure you have some figures. What kind of figures are we looking at here, Cathy?
Well, interestingly, the latest figures in Minnesota that we have for abortions are 2022. So we know that in 2022, there were 12,175 abortions in the state. And that was a 20% increase over 2021. We don't have 2023 numbers. In 2023, the legislature passed the most extreme abortion policy in the world. We have abortion all the way up until birth. We protect now physicians who leave babies to die. If a baby survives an abortion, if a baby's born with a disability, there's no standard of care beyond comfort care for any newborn in Minnesota anymore. But interestingly, we've had tremendous abortion reporting requirements in this state for decades. They're the envy of the nation, actually. We have really good abortion reporting requirements that come out of the Department of Health. When the legislature changed abortion law and gave us abortion up to birth, any reason and no reason, all the way up to the moment of delivery, they also changed our abortion reporting requirements. And what they did was they said that they're not going to tell us how much abortions have increased until after the November elections.
Oh, wow.
So normally we would have those numbers. This past July 1st, we would know what the 2023 abortion numbers were. We don't know, and they won't let us know until after the elections. So that is just another indication of the fact that they want to do what they want to do. They want to increase abortion numbers, and they don't want you to know about it. They don't want you to be voting on that issue. We have to vote on that issue.
Absolutely. You know, they're hiding from us something that they know instinctively is wrong.
Exactly.
And we need to know more about it. You are listening to Ministry Connections on AM 980 The Mission, where we give you a better look at a local ministry or church in our community. My guest today is Cathy Blaeser, and she has phenomenal information about what's happening in our state. She works for Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life in our state. You know, sometimes when we look at a subject like the pro-life, abortion, whatever it is, we don't connect the dots. It's like out there someplace. But I know from my own background in my life, when I served as a pastor, I met women that have gone through that abortion and nobody told them the reality beforehand. I also met people that gave a phone call thinking that they were calling an abortion clinic, found help, and the baby was saved. They didn't go through it because they got some information. Can you give us any kind of a real life story that you know of? I'm sure you have many of them that could connect the issue to real people for us today, Cathy.
Right. The story that comes most quickly to mind, and there are so many beautiful stories out there of women whose babies were saved just by a simple reaching out, right? We live in such a society, such an epidemic of loneliness, and women, when they come into an unplanned or unexpected pregnancy, can feel very alone. And so sometimes the most wonderful thing that we can do is just to reach out, to be there to listen and to offer help, to say, I'll walk alongside you. There's nothing we can't overcome. And so we had one of our interns, one of our young women who interns with our organization, was reached out to from a friend who had a friend who was thinking about abortion. And so they knew that this intern was very pro-life and, would know what she could, what resources were out there. And the one thing that she said that resounded with this particular young woman who was thinking about an abortion, I don't know how I could be a mom, right? And our intern said, you already are a mom. And so just recognizing the validity, the reality of that life from the moment of conception, that there's a baby there already, right? And there are two lives, right? We want to love mothers and their unborn child. It's not one pitted against the other. There are two lives here. And that's really what pregnancy is. Pregnancy is mother and baby thriving together. We love them both. We provide resources for the woman that enable her to be able to walk forward with this pregnancy, not alone, not by herself, but surrounded by people who care.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, we have been listening to Cathy Blaeser of Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life, and you are listening to AM 980 The Mission. And you can also find us on Facebook and X. You can listen to this again and share it with your friends. Let them know that there is help out there. And real quickly, what is the website address for?
It's mccl.org. mccl.org.
Thank you so much, Cathy. You can hear Ministry Connections each week on Mondays, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 p.m. and also on demand on our Facebook page and X. Just look for AM 980 The Mission. If you have a local ministry or church that you would like us to highlight, please give the station a call or email me at comments@salemtc.com. I'm Patrick Hoban, thanking you for listening.